Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Racing Social Cheltenham Festival preview. This is day 3. I hope you enjoyed day 1 and 2. Hopefully, plenty of winners. I'm delighted to be joined by Dawn once again, Cheltenham Festival winning trainer Jamie Snowden, and the voice of racing, Richard Hoiles. Jamie, starting with you. Look forward to the big week next week.
Hi, Jay. Yeah, thanks for having me on. The Cheltenham Festivals, what really, as much as everyone sort of doesn't like to say it is what the whole season revolves around these days. Listen, we're really buzzing and very much looking forward to it.
Stuff. I look forward to seeing, hopefully, you be back in the winners' enclosure. And Richard, you're looking forward to calling more historic moments, I assume?
Yeah, it's always the calm before the storm, really. I know we have all this build-up, and you just try and take yourself out of it a little bit, because otherwise you've run your race by the time you get to the end of Tuesday or Wednesday. So you don't really need to big it up in any shape or form. Jamie's quite right. We get accused of, talking about it relentlessly from November right the way through to when you get this close. Then it's just the difficulties, I think, which we'll be discussing is still we're doing this relatively close now. We're still going to have lots of question marks as to who goes where, and that's become difficult for punters. And we've got the added question, I think, this time of a changing weather forecast as well.
Yeah, because it was looking quite dry, wasn't it? And now all of a sudden it looks like it's going to be the opposite.
Yeah, and Cheltenham is quite notorious for going, ground-wise pretty swiftly. If you do get significant rain, particularly once they've opened it up. And we also know that the grass cover on the new course, through no fault of John Pullins, who's had a torrid year, is not what they ideally would like. So they will make a mess of it quite quickly if it's wet Thursday into Friday. So particularly the second days of both courses, Wednesday and Friday, potentially, if they've turned it over the day before and get rain, could end up with softer ground than we probably all been anticipating for the majority of these sort of the homework.
Definitely. And Dawn, Thursday the festival, always a fantastic day. Some superstars running here, and one in particular, which we'll touch on later, I'm sure. Looking forward to day 3.
Oh, big time. And with the weather change now, Joe, the worry is kind of going out the window with one of my real stayers' fancies. And I was banging on about him non-stop. And this makes me happy about the weather change. Now, I don't want warlike conditions like last Wednesday last year, because that was, wow, you'd want to be a mucklark for that. And we've seen, there's going to be a couple of surprises again, but I seen today as well, I was watching drifts, and I wonder, is that because of the change in the weather too? So, but with it being International Women's Day as well, there's a lot of lovely ladies on the 3rd day at Cheltenham, and a lot of lovely ladies I'm very excited about.
Okay. So we'll kick things off then. We'll start off the Turner's Novice Chase. Jamie, if you don't mind, we'll open the floor up to you. Just a quick one. That's all right, Gino? Does he head here, or is he going elsewhere?
No, I think he's definitely going to go for the place, actually, the 2.5 handicap. He won't be running in the Turners.
Okay. And Mighty Potter, 6-4 favourite, all the rage. He's done nothing wrong all season. Is he your idea of the winner, would you say?
Well, as you say, he's done nothing wrong all season, and certainly I know Gordon Elliott absolutely loves this horse. He's been raving about him for a long time, talking about him, potentially being a Gold Cup horse for the future. And he certainly looked at this season. He did slightly disappoint, last season, didn't he? Ran in the Supreme and made a mistake and didn't really come back from that mistake. So there's always a worry about horses that perhaps have come to Cheltenham and not necessarily delivered in the past, but. Certainly, he looks every inch a proper chaser, and he's been very exciting this season.
Definitely. And Richard, it does look like the crown, the Turners will probably go to Ireland. I can see Dawn smiling. Another prize for the island. Again, it's Willie Mullins versus Gordon Elliott with a touch of Joseph O'Brien in there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's spread a little bit more evenly amongst the Irish trainers than a few we'll probably be talking about. I mean, Jamie hit the nail on the head for Mighty Potter, because if you look at his body of work this season, he has been very impressive. He's quite a physically imposing horse, and if it did come up soft, the fact that he's got form over further means that would be less of a worry. I'd be more worried about Banbridge, for example, who seems a bit of he floats around that early season victory at Cheltenham when the ground was quick enough. I think that's probably his forte. I know he won at the festival on perfectly okay ground last year, or when he won the Martin Pipe. But yeah, I don't know how much of a mark that sort of leaves Jamie. You might know more than me, but you know, he's only been away once, Mighty Potter, and it was a horrible. Everything went completely pear-shaped. He ran into a running rail on the way down towards the start. I don't know if you remember, and he actually got inspected at the start to see whether he was okay to run. And then he never really travelled, and then he absolutely belted the fifth. And it was a complete write-off. And it's at such odds with the rest of his form. I don't know, when they get on the box, Jamie, or the plane, or however he's going to go over on the ferry, do they remember? I don't know.
I do think, thankfully for us, horses are not the most intelligent animals, and sometimes the best race horses are the sort of slightly less intelligent ones still. But I don't know. I do think there is a certain amount for, you know, horses for courses. You know, I do think some horses do run well at particular tracks, but for whatever reason it might be. And I do, as far as the Cheltenham Festival is concerned, I do think horses that have run well at the track before tend to come back and run well again. So, you know, Mighty Potter does look the best horse in this race, but I would have concerns having been to Cheltenham and not performed in the past. I think Banbridge, he obviously, you know, won the Martin Pipe last year. His form in front of Tommy Oscar was very good. Tommy's Oscar obviously went up to Doncaster and looked very good up there in the whatever it's called, the Lightning Novice Chase, wasn't it? So I think Banbridge brings a good deal of form to this race, and obviously has the Cheltenham form behind him as well.
Yeah, the crucial festival winning form. It's talked about quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's something I always like. I think partly because the races are run at more relentless tempos than you get anywhere else, particularly I think the novice races. You know, Jamie and I watch a lot of racing, you know, week in, week out, and Dawn, you certainly would over in Ireland, where you get that they poddle along for a while and then the quality horse quickens and wins the race. When you get to Cheltenham, they don't poddle along for the first half, and so as a result, particularly if they front run, or you know, something comes and just pesters you, and it's a little bit more relentless, and lots of horses have never actually really had that before. And that relentless pressure means I'm always much more comfortable, particularly in the handicaps, if I've got a horse that has been to Cheltenham and shown that he can act. Because I also think that such is the great thing for the owners that, you know, if I had a horse that ran well at the Cheltenham Festival, I'd walk out of there thinking about next year's Cheltenham Festival, you know, and probably very little else in the interim. So I think once you've got a horse that you know handles Cheltenham, the emphasis probably from an owner's perspective is just getting back there again.
Definitely.
I think, Richard, you make a very good point about the tempo of races, because I remember my very first ride at the festival was in the 4 mile National Hunt Chase, 4 miles as it was in those days, and I don't think I'd ever been so fast before in my life, and that was in a 4 mile.
4 miler.
And I remember coming back in, sitting down, and sort of thinking, what on earth has happened there? 2 mile hurdle races pale into insignificance when it comes to a 4 mile National Hunt Chase. You're flat to the balls the whole way. But I think the tempo of the races is significantly increased at the festival.
Definitely. And Dawn, you touched on it before we filmed. Does Sir Gatahad go here? Did you hear say, or does he go elsewhere?
No, he goes elsewhere, Joe. He's Browns. Okay. As far as I know. He's Browns for sure. Unless there's a change, and you know yourself, sometimes I sit and wait, but I heard last week it's Browns. Okay. So I'm hoping and wishing that it's Browns. Please God.
You're
what about Appreciated? Do we think he'll come here?
Yeah, he's definitely Turner's. After his run in the Arkle, it was decided. I think he got very confused in the Arkle, but I do think he's the worry here in the Irish Arkle. I do think he's the worry here for Mighty Potter. He's the one I would take as a bit of a worry to Mighty Potter and I know what Jamie's saying, and I appreciate it, what you're saying about like that they're not that smart and they mightn't remember. But I've had so many arguments with people about Dysart Dynamo and about how good he is. And I say he's not as good as he was after that tumble in the same race last year. So I'm hoping Mighty Potter doesn't remember and doesn't have a little bit of PTSD from last year. And he doesn't go, oh God, there's them crowds again. I'm just going to freak out. But I cannot ignore what Gordon is saying. I cannot ignore Mighty Potter's mum, Matney, and I always big her up on the pod. French Dynamite, Indiana Jones, Brighter Days Ahead, Caldwell Potter. She's an unraced mare, and she has had 5 foals that are just that they're making their own way. They're making a name for her. So if you go by even what she has produced, the winners in the last month out of that mare is incredible. The Drinmore at Fairy House. We sat and we listened to the preview beforehand, and Gordon gave Tia Poo and he gave Mighty Potter. And stupidly, a lot of people didn't listen to either, and both of them hacked up. His win at Punchestown ahead of Sir Gerhardt as well. You can't ignore that. His win at Down Royal, Mars Harper was second. Mars Harper was second yesterday again at Leopardstown, which was a very, very good second. So he's supposed to be their Gold Cup horse for next year. I have every belief, if the head is right, and I'm going to take on board what Jamie is saying, that the head will be right. He should show the same performance that he showed at Dublin Racing Festival, in the Drinmore, what he showed us at Punchestown last year, and give his mum even more a big up than she already is getting, with all these kids doing so well. Banbridge, yes, I do agree as well. He's a little bit of a worry. He's a good price, and my good old friend Appreciate It. Will I have €1 or two? Of course I will, at 9-2, but I'm all for the Mighty Potter, because by Jesus, he's mighty.
Okay, if you don't mind, we'll come to the handicaps at the end of the call if we have enough time and we haven't got brain fog by then. We're going to move on to the Ryanair Chase, and Certain Racing's Darling has roared back. And Jamie, obviously you trained near Nicky Henderson, and that was a masterful training for us to get Shishkin back to form, because a lot of people gave up on him, didn't they?
You're so right, Joe, and Nicky is a phenomenal trainer. We are so lucky in this country to have some wonderful trainers, and I've been lucky enough to work for both Paul and Nicky, and what Nicky can do to horses is amazing. And he can, people write these horses off. He's done it time and time again, and they come back bigger and better than ever. And his performance at Ascot was pretty amazing, and he deserves to be a very short price favourite here.
Definitely. And Richard, I spoke to you before about my lad's joy of Shishkin, so I hope you've got some punchy catch lines when he crossed the line, because we'll be watching it on repeat over in my house if he does.
It's really interesting, because had we done a preview pre-Christmas about Cheltenham, you had all of those horses that had won 2 years in a row, Honeysuckle, Flooring Porter, Allaho, Aplutar and Manila Indo swapped round positions in the Gold Cup, but by and large everything was consistent. Horses like Facile Vega, who'd won the bumper, were very short price for the Supreme, and it all looked relatively straightforward. And yet throw in a Energumene as well, and yet now virtually all of those horses are longer prices than they were. And Shishkin, who was the horse that we probably had all written off, I certainly had from a punting perspective, there's been a whole series of horses that have won lots of races. Blackjack Ketchum syndrome, I always used to call it, because he was the one that I first noticed it with. And I always thought it was like a boxer. You thought you were invincible, and as soon as you got a bloody nose and were ended up on the deck, you sort of remembered it. Yeah, and I thought, the victory over Energumene may well have really left its mark. I wasn't 100% convinced by, some of the reasons as to why he'd run badly, but they'd really got a grip of it, the long bone syndrome and all this sort of thing. And he didn't look the same horse in the Tingle Creek. And it was a fantastic performance the other day. Would I back him at 8-11? No, I wouldn't, because I'm still worried there's a performance like we had last year just around the corner. Would I love to see him win? Absolutely. And if you do want to take him on, your big problem is with what? Yeah. Because Conflated is still joint second favourite. He's likely to go. Conflated, I mean, they just made straight away. Michael O'Leary was Ryanair immediately afterwards, probably so we'd mentioned it a million times on TV. And then quietly, 3 weeks later, he just goes for the Gold Cup. So, but do you really look at the others and think Blue Lord, Janadil, if I was going to have a bet, well, obviously come on to Garlaw in a minute for Jamie. If I was going to have a bet, I'd back Fakir Duderi at the moment because I think, no bet, because I think he will turn up 14-1 in places. And obviously he was a shorter price than Shishkin the other day. He ran woefully, but his overall body of work is fairly consistent. And I can see that race cutting up. And I think he'll be shorter on the day than 14s, but it's one of those where if Shishkin wins, no one really cares about the betting. We can all just salute a fantastic training performance of the sort of sprinter Sacre ilk.
Yeah, you touched on it there. Like, if you were going to take Shishkin on whoever, Blue Lord still might go champion chase, I hear. So, conflated Gold Cup, Janadil, pick Dory's 8-1, and Shishkin beat him out of sight. So,
yeah,
there you go. The one maybe for each way value might be Hitman, as Dawn will tell you. I'm falling out with that horse. He constantly gets beat. And obviously, Jamie's Garlaw would be very, very interesting if he was to show up. But a lot depends on ground and plans up the air, Jamie, I assume. He's got some big tasks ahead, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, we were just, I mean, obviously we've mentioned it in the past, but the rules for the Grand National state, you've got to finish in the first 4 in a race of a distance of 2 miles 7+. It sounds very simple and straightforward and obvious when anyone's writing these rules, but yeah, a lot of the better horses are campaigned over shorter distances earlier in their career, and as far as Garlaw is concerned, we've stepped him up to 3 miles on one occasion, and he came to win his race and fell at the last, and the handicapper thought it was sensible to give him a rise because of that. So he would suggest that the horse has shown improved form for going up to 3 miles, and that is ideally what the handicapper wants to see in order for horses to run in the Grand National. He's a Paddy Power Gold Cup winner. He's the type of horse that we should be, in my opinion, and hopefully a few others, should be celebrated as to having a crack at the Grand National. But as it stands, we're still not eligible, and time is running out. So the Gold Cup is the Gold Cup. It'd be a brave shout to go there. Obviously, the Ryanair, as we're saying, perhaps is we'll see when confirmations come out whether it sort of cuts up a little bit further. If it does, then it might be tempting to try and chase some prize money behind Shishkin, perhaps. But every day you ask me, Joe, I'll come up with a different answer until the day. Yeah,
that's how it should be. Either way, he deserves his a crack at a Grade 1, Grade 2 in the National. He deserves it. He's been a mighty horse for you.
Jamie, did you know at the time? Did you, when he came down, were you aware of the implications of that?
Very much so.
You must have been like a punter, just praying to get over the lap, and you're clear and you got the job done. And that is, because I suppose without the national aim, if I'm looking at the 2 races, I'd definitely be saying to you, that could cut up. You have a great chance in the Ryanair, but you have to park that national dream. And I suppose you always worry that 12 months' time you might not be in the same place with the horse.
Well, listen, he's only a 7-year-old. He was a graded performer as a novice chaser. He had a year off the track, and he ended up being quite nicely handicapped for the Paddy Power, which he obviously won really, really nicely, but won going away and actually needed every yard of the trip to go and win the race. When he fell in the Skybet chase at the last, he did another mile. Tired horses, when they fall at the last, as you know, Richard, they trot across the winning line and get caught. He did another 1.5 miles of the race course, and we caught him down at the back on the top of Rose Hill. So, he wasn't a tired horse when he came down. And if he is a young, improving 7-year-old, and if he does have the world at his feet, then perhaps the National this year is the time to catch him, because he might not have that kind of handicap mark next year. It's frustrating, but these things happen for a reason, and I'm sure you can't look back in life. You've got to look forward, and if he is going to be a graded performer for next year, then listen, the National might be a thing of the past. But we'll see.
Okay, Dawn, Shishkin, is it simple as that?
Simple as that, but I'll just go to what Jamie said about the Garlaw form, and I went and I had a dig, because I always have a dig. Something which maybe has gone past a lot of people. He's 16-1. He's Mouse Morris's, and he was second to Galore in the Gold Cup. is French Dynamite. And he's Mighty Potter's half brother. Again, shout out to Matney. And he's been running so well. His win at Thurles before he went over and ran against Galore, he was so good. And I kicked myself because we had Jamie on the pod, and Jamie had said, and I went against Jamie and I said, oh no, French Dynamite. And Galore hacked up and beautifully. And it was just so wonderful to see. And we move forwards like any good racehorse, we move forward. So for each way play, he's for me, with whether Galore is there or not, because you've got the Galore form and because you've got that solid breeding as well, which I'm pushing the breeding here big time. But, you know, I'm a sentimental one, and I believe, and you remember the big speech 16 days ago or so, or 17, every part of me wants Shishkin to do this. It's what racing dreams are made of. It's what Cheltenham dreams are made of. And what a difference, like Richard was saying about all the horses he was naming, that now we've changed our minds so many times, because like with racing and with horses, you can go down the yard and you think that you've got a Grand National winner, and the next day then they've turned themselves upside down and they might never run again. So yeah, look, an Arkle winner, a Supreme winner, the Tingle Creek, I wasn't that underwhelmed. I don't think we were being that fair. A lot of people argued that Energumene, the possessed spirit, had broken Shishkin's heart. Well, then Shishkin is like someone that came out of a really bad divorce, glowed up, and came back bigger, better. And like I said to you, when he went over that line at Ascot 16 days ago, he was laughing. He was laughing. And I mean, he turns up and does that at the Ryanair. We'll all be in buckets of tears and we'll all be laughing with him. And what did we say, Joe? Never give up and always believe. Never give up and always believe. And that's why we love racing. And that's why we love Shishkin. And Nicky Henderson, when he's in a pool of emotions, we all are there with him. So I don't care about money that much. I care about romance and sentimentality. And that's going all the way to Shishkin. And if I want a couple of euros for my paper cup pint, it'll go to French Dynamite.
Okay, so we all thinking Shishkin, if Garlaw doesn't run, Jamie is the one to beat.
Does NYLN, do we know where NYLN runs?
I presume he's going here.
I think he is, yeah. I think the guy over Cheveley was saying on Nick Luck's pod he has a good each way chance as well. Again, I'm making my big speeches about never give up, but he was always a fantastic horse, but I don't think he gets past Shishkin either way. I love him, but yeah, I think he's Ryanair bound, I think, if I remember rightly.
He's one that actually fulfilled that sort of Black Jack Catch'em scenario. Once he did get beat, he came down. Obviously, it is amazing, isn't it, how these horses move in and out. We'll be talking about Kilcrut a bit later on. Was he 14, 16, 20s? If you told anyone that would be the case, and of course, if you go back a few years, you had Sam Crow. There's plenty that don't make the peak, so it'd be a great story for Shishkin. As I say, I can't part with money odds on at that. I think if you missed him before he won at Ascot, Fakir Dudari is for me interesting. I'll go and have another look at him. Jamie's right. This is the one. I mean, Jamie will obviously be poised over the entries and confirmations just because of Garlaw, but I think punters should be as well, because this is the one that could cut up, I think.
Yeah.
I
think more if Shishkin does win, I think showing off a bit now, Dawn. I think we can have a bit on next year's Gold Cup, can we, Shishkin?
I think we could be very confident, Joe. I think now, as I say,
get in there early. We're talking about next year's Cheltenham Festival already. This one ain't even started.
In there, That's
Yeah, Nicky Henderson did a preview with me on last week, and I allowed him sort of free reign. Trainers only like, Jamie knows this, he only likes to talk about but he said he had this dream of the obvious one that we can all see, that if Shishkin won the Ryanair, then it would be King George and Gold Cup next season as his objectives. And who knows? I mean, he did look much more comfortable at the trip, which could explain the Tingle Creek lethargy and everything else. It's just in the back of my mind what happened 12 months ago. He was beaten so early in that race. You know, if I'd probably watch him over the set. If you were really keen to back him,
yeah,
I would have the exchanges open and I'd let him jump too.
Yeah.
So moving from the Ryanair now to the Stayers hurdle, and Blazing Cow was the favourite here, but I read today he needs to get through a crucial bit of work on Friday to even get on the ferry. Dawn's Tiapu's here. Marie's Rock, she's interesting if she does come this route. Home by the Lee, and then Flooring Porter, even Classical Dreams in there at 12 to 1. And he again, he's another horse that fits your description about he's just here and then he's gone and then here, then gone. Richard, Stayers hurdle, they've got a strong.
No. This is the one that's perplexed me for most of the season, to be honest. Partly because Dawn would have a much better handle on the Irish form than I would. Obviously, Blazing Cal, there was the suspicion of whether he would, bounce in inverted commas, the second rut syndrome after a run. The issue seems to be nothing to do with bouncing. It appears to be that he had sustained an injury, which meant they couldn't get straight back on with him. They are a stable that sends smoke signals out. Trying to determine them is difficult. Let's not beat about the bush. They've landed gambles and it's a little bit smoke and mirrors, cloak and dagger. So, there were a few interviews straight afterwards where he was meant to have been fine and this wasn't mentioned at all. So I don't know. His jumping is not great. It never has been. And obviously his preparation is rather unusual. Question whether Marie's Rock comes here. Nicky seems to suggest that he would like her to, I think. I think he would ideally like Epatante in the mares, and hence Marie's Rock comes here. I think the owner, when I've heard him interviewed a couple of times on Nick Luck's show, he sort of, why change? I've won one. No one got too upset when Quavega kept winning them. So why should I be forced to go for the Stayers? I can win it again against Honeysuckle and Epatante and enhance her reputation. But she's also never been entirely straightforward. She was very buzzy the year she didn't really do a great deal. So she's not a horse I overly like. Flooring Porter, been there, done it twice. I just don't know where he is, if you know what I mean, in terms of fitness wise. But I wouldn't rule him out on the go back to Cheltenham scenario. And then we get to Home by the Lee, who's the improved one. If you just did him on form, but he was well beat last year, but his form has gone to a new level. So I've spoken about all of the principles, and you can see I'm not particularly positive about any of them. Tiupu, yes, is he confirmed as a better stayer? I can't find an English horse really, unfortunately. They've been beating each other, Paisley Park and Champ. No, this would be a race I would just now be filing from a betting perspective in the too hard basket, I think.
Yeah, I think the thing with Flooring Porter, if he does run, he obviously hasn't won this season going into the race, but last season he won it on the back of not winning a race all season.
Yeah, and he is funny. He is quirky. And as a result, I think when that happens, I think that's one of his assets, really, because if he performed those tactics year one, and we were all talking about how to get him beat, we'd send someone up there to pester Flooring Porter and, get at him and this sort of thing. But you look at him and going into the set and you think, well, actually, I'm not sure he's the one to beat. And then they let him go get freebie again, and then he wins again. And if he comes there on the day and they let him dictate, he, by his own personality, saves some energy, because that's what he does. He just dosses about, and then he's difficult to get by. So I can see Flooring Porter winning in my head more than I can see Marie's Rock and maybe Blazing Cal. I don't know, but still 6 to 1 in places for a horse that's won the Stayers twice, and the Stayers is a race that throws up multiple winners along with the Champion Chase. They're the two that you tend to come back and be able to win year in, year out.
Have you got a theory on this race, Jamie? It's a bit of a minefield, as we've touched on.
Yeah, I think Richard said it very eloquently. It is a minefield, isn't it? I do like Flooring Porter. I like Cheltenham form, and I thought Danny Mullins' ride last year was absolutely incredible, and he's riding out of his skin, isn't he? He's a very, very talented jockey, and probably doesn't necessarily get the plaudits that sometimes some of the more high profile jockeys tend to get. But his ride on Flooring Porter in the last couple of years has been faultless, and I think he's probably the most likely winner in the race.
Yeah. Dawn, one of the strangest entries I've seen for the Stayers hurdle, Chacon Poursuit, shapes to me, he's a complete non-stayer, and he's a chaser, and then all of a sudden Willie enters him in the Stayers hurdle.
You know why he did that, don't you? For you.
No.
He did that for you. That is for you. He heard what you said and he did it for you. But I mean, look, did that run the last day? God, it haunts me. And then he didn't show up at Nace, and I don't know. I'm like the lyric of the song, "Don't Stop Believing." I kind of have, but I blame you too. And I see Asteria Phalange is in there as well, another headbanger. Like, I mean, you've got Asteria Phalange in there, you've Classical Dream. Now, you remember me waxing lyrical about Classical Dream when he was second to Tia Poo in the Hatton's Grace. Then he wasn't going to go, then he is going, and they're saying now for sure he is. He's in there at 10s. But he nearly took 5 photographers out of it at Punchestown when he came back in the parade ring. And I just wonder, is he a bit much of a nut? And again, I know I'm getting into the head of the horse. He is a bit of a nutter. Flooring Porter supposedly is in great form, because after Leopardstown yesterday, I went to the Cheltenham preview. Gavin was talking. He said he's back to his nutty self, which I have a Yates myself, and I know again they're a little bit they're nutters, but that's what makes them good. Tia Poo, you know how I feel about Tia Poo. I came away from Gowran and people said, "Oh, but he didn't beat anything." 15 lengths to Somerville Boy. Somerville Boy was a very good horse in his time, a supreme winner in 2018. I know we're scraping back a little bit, but his 25-1 win in the Hatton's Grace was fantastic. And they say, oh, well, now we are questioning what way is it going to rain. If it does rain, it's going to be even better for him, but I'm still not worried about the ground, because if you go by his dad, Masked Marvel, he'll have no problem with that ground, even though he has mostly won on soft. The French horse, Gold Tweet, he needs to be supplemented for this still. I don't know when the deadline is for that, but the trainer, and please don't ask me to pronounce it because I just can't. My French is, you know how bad it is, Joe. But he had Tia Poo as a 3-year-old, so he knows what he has. And that French jockey rode some race on Gold Tweet. We're going off if he'll turn up or if he doesn't turn up. Marie's Rock, I adore her. I adore Midland Park. What they did with the Platinum Queen in the Arc weekend was fantastic. Blazing Cal, Charles Burns, I'm with Richard. It's Cloaks and Daggers. We had to hear after the Boyne that the horse had a little cut. I know in the days of Twitter now, we broadcast if we sneeze, but we didn't really need to know that he had a little cut. Does he go? I was at Lawler's Day when Champ Kiley, my favourite, ran, and Biker had won, who I really like, for the Boodles. And Charles was interviewed afterwards, and Charles had said that day that we mightn't see Blaze and Cal at all for Cheltenham. And then he turns up and does that in the Boyne. So I'm going round in circles here. Where do I stick? I'm sticking with Tia Poo. I'm sticking all the way with Tia Poo. I think after that win at Gowran, and he does it so easy. We talk about Constitution Hill not worrying about anything. He just does it in a breeze. Tia Poo is the same. And the girl Erica who does him, she talks to him all the way around the parade ring. They have full conversations together, and it's just beautiful to see. He's such a happy horse, and he was the first one to knock the crown off Honeysuckle as well. As much as people didn't like it, he did it, and I think he is your out and out winner for this. Or Chacun Pour Soi could give you a shock, Joe, and that'll finish you.
I'm looking forward to the way Rich is going to call the race. If we get Classical Dream, Flooring Porter, Steering for Lond, and Goshen all going at it from the front.
Yeah,
it'll be
fun,
like
though.
the Riddler at Ascot.
Well, yeah, so it might bite still. There's a horses like that are still etched in my memory. Yeah, I wouldn't be predicting anything, Joe. I wouldn't
That's it.
I wouldn't be well, they're all travelling or not or anything else. Yeah.
And Jamie, if you had a horse in the race, the jockey instruction would be interesting, wouldn't they? If them four at the head of affairs.
Goshen, God, I mean, what an enigma he really is, isn't he? but listen, we would all love it if he did somehow manage to go and win this, wouldn't we? It would be incredible.
Supplementaries, I think, for this are going to be 5-day stage, I think, Dawn. So
Okay.
Marie's Rock presumably be declared at the 5 days anyway. I'm not sure whether she's actually in and whether it needs to be supplemented. But yeah, the French Shores Gold Tweak would definitely need to be supplemented. And I think they're going to supplement another one, I think I read. Unfortunately, the name didn't mean anything to me at all.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, like that with me, Rich, that when I went back and I looked at what the trainer had done, because I wouldn't be that familiar over there, but when I went back and I went, geez, he really laid him out for this, you know, like he really did. And he knows his onions, you know, but I really enjoyed the whole process. And that jockey, that ride, that had to be one of the rides of the season. It really did.
He's certainly never ridden at Cheltenham. I'm not sure he'd actually ever ridden in England before either. And given the tempos, we spoke about tempos earlier. I mean, France, they just crawl around. Either, again, he was very clever. Again, I don't know whether they land punts in France or what have you, but either he was of the Charles Burns sort of playing it down and he had a good horse, or he just came on and said it was a sighter to see where the French horses were. Long time to go back to the Barracudas and some of those really good chasers, but they did hold their own in those days when Ian McCare used to have a lot of horses that came over, and obviously Dumen as well. So maybe we're going to head back to that. I don't know. We don't see many of them because of the prize money now. So interesting to see if they do supplement.
Definitely. So moving on to the Grade 2 Mares Novice, and Nikki Anderson's got another favourite here, Lucia. I would like her to go Supreme, but I think she's going to head here. And these mares races, Jamie, they get a lot of stick. They're split on social media. People moan about them, but I think it's a brilliant initiative. I think it deserves its place at the Cheltenham Festival, don't you?
Oh, you just have to look at the Mares Hurdle this year to realise that actually these Mares Novices are needed in order to create these decent race mares, in open company. And the Mares race itself over 2.5 is probably one of the races of the festival, really, if they all turn up there. And it's come about because of the programme book, which I know people sort of lamented to start with, but that it's a necessary, and I think that the race mares that we have now, both in this country and in Ireland, are a testament to the fact that the programme book has worked. So it's all credit to the BHA. I know they take a lot of stick over a lot of things, but the BHA and the TBA have put forward these programmes and all the initiatives that go with it, with the what was the MOPS and now the GBB, and actually people want to go out and buy mares now, and so they should.
Obviously, Lucia is very short, 30 to 8. Does You Wear It Well? Is she going to run?
Yeah. So she definitely runs in this race. She's entered into a few, but she definitely runs in this race. She's obviously been a really progressive mare. She's won three over hurdles this year. She won a bumper last season. The only time she was beaten this year was in the Grade 1 Challow, which was a race that has thrown up a huge amount of winners. And we were only 4 lengths behind Hermes Allen that day. We had the 4th horse as well, Passing Well, who came out and won since. And obviously, You Wear It Well won the Grade 2 Jane Seymour at Sandown a couple of weeks ago, the same race that Love Envoy won before coming to win this race. And hopefully our mare can follow suit.
Yeah, she goes there with a big chance. I really like the way she goes about her business. She's tough and she seems so genuine. It must be is she a dream to train? Straightforward?
She's very tough. I'll give you that one. She's an absolute nightmare.
No, I think
she is lovely. She is lovely. You wouldn't want to clip her too many times.
No, she's got a great chance.
Or scope her.
No.
In fact, Harry doesn't like her either.
Mares Novice, Richard.
Yeah, I think Jamie's point is well made, in the sense we have to accept that some of these races are platforms for the future. I do think Lucia goes here based on what Nikki said. He's semi-tempted because of the weight allowance you get if you run in the Supreme, but I don't think you spurn talking 13 to 8, 6 to 4 chance in a race that isn't one of the deeper ones to go to the Supreme and potentially put your mare up against all of the battalions of the Irish. So I think she goes here. She deserves probably to be favourite. I suppose Astro Diamond is another one that you might give a thought of. where I have the issue, Jamie, is more, I don't have any issue with the mares' races themselves. I probably still have issue with them when you run against the boys, that you have the amount of allowance that you have. I sort of think you've got your own mares' races, then when you then take on the boys, you probably, for my mind, you should just have level weights. I don't know enough about horses to know whether there's any physical disadvantage. Weight for age is obviously designed to compensate for physical. 3-year-old isn't as strong as a 4-year-old. I think we can all see that. Never quite sure. Having seen some of the mares in recent years, you wouldn't mess with them, and I'm not 100% sure that there's much physically in it. And so as a result, I just have a little bit of an issue with a champion hurdle, for example, where Honeysuckle might beat, let's say a Constitution Hill. Obviously that won't happen, but they beat a gelding by a neck, and the best horse finishes second at the weights, gets the highest rating and everything. I have a bit of a problem with that with championship races, but I don't have an issue with the mayor's program as it stands. I would go with Lucia, but if I'm all honest, I don't know a lot about the Irish, and so as a result, pricing Lucia up would be tricky for me.
Yeah, and Dawn, we all love Lucia on this show, don't we?
She's, like I said, she's the Red Queen, Joe, and she took on the boys the 22 days ago. It's the press day at Nicky's the day after, and she came out, and you'd never know she had a race. You would never know she had a race, and she's lucky to be alive. That's the thing too. So she's a miracle as well. And to see Nicky turn up there, with me myself being a fangirl and putting on the colours of the horses and nearly being a cheerleader, and there he was in his yellow and pink, and it was just lovely to see. And she is, like I say, she's the Red Queen. She was a supreme dream for me, but he's not going there from what he's saying. Again, we say it can all change, but yeah, I really, really like her. You know where else I'm going to go with this? 12-1. My flat love is so solid. And Tony Mullins with Danny, this would be one of your stories, if not for Cheltenham, for years. What a training performance. And they all laughed at Tony when Zoe came out of the sales. She didn't sell, and he said what he was going to do with her. Well, look what he did with her. Now she dead heated at Punchestown. I think if she hadn't made her novice mistake, she would have won. She would have won, taken nothing from the horse who she dead heated with, but she's far superior. You've the Kyprius form there. Yes, okay, we're talking about the flat, but she's when we were all locked up and we had all these relationships with horses through the telly, her winning the Prix de Cadron, God, it was magic. And she's just, Tony Mullins trains like his dad, Paddy. And if that was to happen, and for a change, we'll have a different Mullins as well. I adore Lucia. I don't know her personally, but as a serious racing fan on my head says Lucia, but I think Zoe will be there or thereabouts. I have so much respect for Tony with what he says, and he has such a belief in her, and he eats, sleeps and drinks this mare. The whole journey, the whole of Ireland adore her. And wouldn't it be lovely as well, because you're going to have a reminder of Dawn Run, my namesake, as well, for Tony to have. He didn't ride Dawn Run, but to train Zoe to go on and win this. Just for a little bit of interest, I marked her up a couple of weeks ago, Mullenbeg. I have her at 40s. She's now into 20s. That good run she had against Robud. I don't know how you say it. I love her because she's got the Deeply Superficial, the Queen's Gamble, and the Lucia form in there. Bred by Mags Mullins of the Mullins dynasty through marriage, and also Peter Magner, who is responsible for Henry the Navigator. So, there's a bit of interest there. Sorry, she fascinates me night and day. We've seen that win. We always talk about that race at Fairy House, Brandy Love, Love Envoy, Dino Blue, all in that. She's 13-2. She's a little bit too tight for me. So I have Mullenbeg at a huge price. If she's there or thereabouts, I'm happy. But if it's not Lucia, let it be Zoe. But the whole of Ireland is behind Tony and Zoe.
Okay. Quick go through the handicaps. I don't know if anyone's got any fancy. Starting with you, Richie. Anything for the attempts? Probably the easiest handicaps on the week, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's slightly different, obviously, with only 4 to qualify this time around.
Yeah.
Traditionally, you went to Ireland. And it's been a bit unfair on the Irish, if I'm honest about it, because about 28 turned up for their one over Christmas with only 4 places to go through. I think there should be some flexibility based on field size, because a few of the English qualifiers, we've only had 8 runners, and I expected to see a few more come over who might have an interest in qualifying. Maxim, I suppose, is the most obvious interesting one from Gordon's, I think he is, isn't it? And, because he looked as if he'd been plotted up and roared up the handicap and then didn't win the other day. The 2 that were interesting that I've seen, Bear Gills, if he wins, he got the last qualifying spot on the last day at Chepstow, staggered into 4th. There is a question as to who will stay, but he's quite a classy individual. Remember, he was thought of being a graded horse in his youth. The one I would part money with, and one of my more interesting ones for the week, is Mill Green, who was 3rd last year. He's got a good record in these big handicaps. He went and got placed again at Aintree. He is 11, and I granted that in the modern era, not that many horses that old have run well, but I go back far enough to remember Buena Vista and even Willie Wumpkins, the Coral Golden Hurdle days of winning it regularly. And so I'm interested in him. He's 25 to 1. Nicky's got a whole host of horses qualified. Captain Morgs, who I think is an absolute thief, Walking on Air. But maybe because of that, Mill Green's just slightly underestimated. He's still widely available at 25s. He fits the profile of a horse that's run well in similar races in the past. He's a couple of pounds higher. He is a year older, but I think that might be in the price at 25. So he'd be my Pertemps one. If you want me just to rattle through the others, there's not that much. Fastall Slow holds lots of entries. He's in the plate. And hence the reason I've mentioned him. He's also in the Kim Muir. I think he holds a 3rd entry as well. But again, he's another one to look at closely, because I think his profile is he's run in 2 graded races. I think he ran in a really good graded race last time and clocked a similar figure, 4th or 5th. It's very, very hard to work out where he is. He qualifies for the race by the fact I think he won a chase in France at one of those 4-year-old chases, and then came back over here, ran over hurdles. So I looked at, I couldn't work out where he was qualified. He hadn't run twice. And then I realized there was one right in his back catalogue. So when you look at that in hindsight, if he's run well, you'll think that was just 2 runs out of his grade to try and guess a handicap mark. And he could be quite dangerous. Football and Kim Muir, I don't have as strong. I went right through there trying to find a horse that fitted the profile of being placed, like Mill Green and Fastall Slow. So Fastall Slow ran really well in that breakneck pace race that there last year. So he's got some form at the track. Beauport interested me slightly, slightly. I like him. Maybe it's because he carries the old Corbière colours, and I'm getting like you like Dawn. I love that sort of thing. Hardly seen him again until this year, and he looked a chaser, and he just got lost at Cheltenham last time in a much better race. 16 to 1. He's now rated lower than he was over hurdles, and I've always thought he'd be a better chaser. So Mill Green more confidently for Pertemps, Fastall Slow, interesting wherever he goes. Beauport, Football and Kim Muir. And the other obvious thing to mention about that is check the jockey bookings, because it has such a massive difference here in terms of particularly the Irish leading riders who, to all intents and purposes, are professionals. So work out who gets, all the higher profile ones. They'll all be fighting. The phone will be red hot.
That's it. Yeah. Jamie, you mentioned obviously That's Right Gino. He goes to the plate. Did you say?
Yeah, That's Right Gino definitely goes in the plate. I think he's got a decent chance. He's a really progressive individual. He's been mainly campaigned over 2 miles this year. He won at Cheltenham over hurdles last season, but he's really developing into a proper horse. We've always liked him, and now he's really beginning to show it. Steps up to 2.5 miles. He chased home Stage Star on Trials Day. He's quite a stuffy individual, and he's better left-handed. So I ran him in the Pendle the other day, which is obviously flat right-handed track round Kempton, looking to pick up a little bit of prize money and not affect our handicap mark. Unfortunately, the handicapper saw him and nudged him up a few pounds, which was slightly frustrating because, but it's the way it goes. He is a progressive horse. If he can do that on a flat right-handed track, I know he's only going to improve on an undulating left-handed track again. So I think he's got a right chance in the Plate. Without the mares races, funnily enough, he would have been perfect for that novice handicap chase that President You won a few years back. But hey, that's obviously been taken off the list. So he comes here for the Plate.
And then have you had a chance to look at the Potemps, or is it? It's just
So I mean, wouldn't it be lovely if the King had a winner?
Yes, good point. Yeah.
Still a March would be great. You don't find many horses win at Worcester in the summer and then go on and win the Potemps, though, perhaps. So I think of Nicky's Walking on Air is the one out of a lovely mare, that lovely mare Refinement. I think he is a very, very classy individual. He's probably a graded performer running in a handicap. So I would suggest that Walking on Air might win this, and then might be seen in the Stairs Hurdle next year.
Yeah, just a quick one. I wanted to ask you about one in the Kim Muir, Jamie, basically from a trainer's point of view. And I noticed he's in a few races. Next Destination for Nicky hasn't ran for 720 odd days or so. But Nicky, we know what Nicky at the festival are like. Is that too big a layoff even for a trainer like Nicky Henderson?
I think so.
Yeah, it's a big task, isn't it? But
he does have he was the only one, actually. You reminded me, Joe, when I went through that race, he is the only one with form, National Hunt Chase form, wasn't it, for a couple of years ago?
Yeah, he's been with William Mullins, and he went to Nichols for a bit. He had a couple of runs to Nichols, and then he's with Henderson.
He's done the treble. He doesn't do 4-star hotels, does he?
Imagine if he was to win, would he be the only horse that has won for Mullins, Nichols, and Henderson?
Well, that's a very good question. Because that because you mentioned it, you think, well, how many have even been trained by the three? A few went from Willies to Paul, didn't they? When
Stormy Island,
the red and pink hoop colours moved.
Sullivan's,
Yes, but they didn't cover themselves in glory and went back. I don't know whether any actually went on to Nicky. They'd be the only ones I think that might have been all three. But obviously, if you tend to win with them, you tend to keep them, don't you?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I just thought he was interesting. Dawn, anything for the three handicaps we've talked about?
Yeah. Because like as I say, every week you like to give me my pennants. So here's the handicaps coming again. Pre-Tomps, I'll let you have your bit on Good Time, Johnny. I'm with you as an each way play there, Joe. Merely because of the Maxim form and Gaelic Warriors stuck in there, but I'll let you have him because he's yours. The Boss's Oscar 8-1. Really, really like that run at Musselburgh, and I think he's laid out for this. Second in the pre-temps, Mrs. Milner. Champagne Platinum, you've seen how he ran a couple of weeks ago. He's kind of back to being what he used to be. He was really good in that. The Boss's Oscar, he won at Limerick in July, and he hadn't won for 2 years. But what I like in that race at Thurles that he won in 2020, French Dynamite was second. So there we go with the Galore form again. And Belfast Banter was fourth. And Belfast Banter went on to win a county hurdle. And he's now in America, I believe. So, that's my case for the Boss's Oscar. And Katrina Bulger, who does him, absolutely adores him and is actually doing his sister as well. So, the Boss's Oscar's little sister is doing quite well over here too. She's one to watch for the future. The Plate, adamantly chose him. I think he goes here. He's 15-2. He was my 5 to follow for the season. Loved his win at Listowel. Willie was just so happy. Seen him run at Punchestown the same day Marine Nationale hacked up, and a photographer said to me, you need to take a photo of this horse, Dawn. This is going to be the second coming. That's Marine Nationale. He's been second to Jerry Calam. He's been second to Mighty Potter at Dublin Racing Festival. He was 5th to Mighty Potter as well. That when he was 4th to Comprond last year at Punchestown, he got stuck in the mud. I'm hoping it's not too mucky for him. But to me, he's the out and out winner. And at a bigger price, Jevray at 40-1. Just speaking of Katrina Bulger, she rode him in the Up the Yard stable staff race a couple of weeks ago to be third to the very man. So I think he has a nice chance at 40-1, but my heart sticks with Adam, adamantly chosen. I feel like I know him personally at this stage. And the Kim Muir, the horse is out at Naas for the Leinster National on Sunday. She's a Yates mare. She's carrying 11 stone. I'm hoping Keen Quirk is up on her again, because he is a valuable claimer over here, and he has a great relationship with her. Angel's Dawn, she's 8-1. Really like her. She came down in the Grand National Trial at Punchestown to Cocoa Beach. I think Cocoa would have won still, but I think Angel's Dawn would have been close. Lovely win at Down Royal in January. She rallies like any good Yates. She rallies, and if she rallies like this, I think she'd be there or thereabouts. Connections today came out and spoke so positively about her. I'm going to go on Sunday to Naas solely to see how she runs in the Leinster National. She was second to notice to close at Punchestown. She was only done on the line, and I think she should have won that day. She had made a little mistake. And she was second to Frontal Assault, who is in the Hunt Cup, who I quite like as well. So, yeah, for the Kim Muir, it's Angel's Dawn. For the plate, it's adamantly chosen. And for the pretemps, it's the Boss's Oscar.
Okay. Yeah, as we said, one I like, I won't go into why I like them, because no one wants to listen to me babbling on. Like Good Time Johnny for the pretemps. For the plate, I have earmarked That's All Right Gino for Jamie, and Ulra Doto for Paul Nichols. And in the Kim Muir, Aniel Invictus, he's quite interesting, obviously, and I will be cheering on Next Destination if he does show up in this, purely because it'll be one of the best training performances of the Cheltenham Festival in history. So we're a bit pressed for time, so I was going to quickly ask for you, Jamie, you don't have to answer, obviously you've got runners, your strongest selection of the day, if you don't mind, Richard.
Strongest selection of the day will be, from value perspective, it will be Mill Green in the pretemps. I do tend to prefer the handicaps, and if fast or slow lined up in the plate, which is a big question mark. They're two horses I'm very interested in during the course of the week. As regards the shorter prices in the championship races, it is difficult because I don't have a strong view in the Ryanair or the Stayer, so I probably would end up on Lucia by default in the mares, but I would suggest that I would be playing more handicaps on this day to smaller stakes than I would do in the feature races.
Definitely. Dawn, strongest selection?
Strongest selection. Do you want value, do you want romance, or do you want money?
Either.
Romance, Shishkin and Princess Zoe. Money, Honey, Mighty Potter and Tia Poo. Value, I think Mullenbeg at a big price each way. And my Adam, adamantly chosen. I followed him all season, and I am keeping my faith in him so much. The people who owned Adamant Approach own this guy. It's a whole family affair, and I would only love to see it happen.
Okay. Jamie, from yourself?
Well, I'm going for an each way treble on.
Ooh.
Who's? I missed you there. Who was it? Jamie Fry.
I'm going to go for an each way treble on That's Right Gino, Garlaw, and You Wear It Well.
Oh, very nice.
Ooh,
very nice.
That's why I like Jamie. Nail them all to the mast. Go down.
That's where my house is going, Jamie. So if I have to move in with you, I'm coming for you.
Who cares about the other? We'll just go with Jamie's.
Yeah, I like it. So once again, absolute thanks once again for giving up your time for us again, gentlemen, as always, Richard and Jamie and Dawn. We'll see you tomorrow for day 4. But Jamie, Richard, all the best for next week in your working capacities. And Jamie, hopefully we'll see you in the winners' enclosure. And Richard will be cheering you home up the finishing line with a bit of luck.
Great stuff. Well, listen, Joe, thank you so much for doing it. You hosted it brilliantly, and I really appreciate being on.
Cheers.
Yeah,
well, thanks
likewise.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, you take care.
Thank you.